europeo al Presidente Donald Tusk.
On Brexit, the EU27 adopted guidelines for the future EU-UK relationship and welcomed the progress made on the withdrawal agreement. We want to use the positive momentum in these negotiations to finally settle outstanding issues, such as the solution to avoid a hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. The UK's decision on Brexit has caused the problem, and the UK will have to help solve it. Without a solution, there will be no withdrawal agreement and no transition. Leaders will assess the negotiations in June. In parallel, we will start our first talks about the future EU-UK relationship.
Europa della libertà e della democrazia diretta, la parola all'onorevole Farage.
Thank you. Well, for Brexit voters, this whole thing is a slow, endless agony. We didn't vote for a transition deal, we voted to leave. Now, I'm not in the least bit surprised by the intransigence of Mr Barnier and the EU's negotiating team. They have got to defend their empire, which of course is coming under sustained assault from voters everywhere, in particular the recent wonderful results in Hungary. But in the face of all of this, the British have rather blinked, and you get the impression that the Prime Minister doesn't really believe in Brexit. She's just carrying out the will of the people. So I'm concerned that we're headed for a really very bad deal from a British perspective. We've already conceded too much money, too much authority for the European Court of Justice. We're betraying our fishing communities. Oh, and open-door immigration, the primary reason we voted Brexit, continues with no end in sight. We're headed for Brexit in name only, so I'm pretty frustrated, and I think 17.5 million people are. But there is one bit of really good news. The George Soros-funded attempt, headed up by Tony Blair and others, to get the British to have a second referendum. You know, the old trick that was tried on Denmark and Ireland in the past, that is now run into the ground. There isn't going to be a second referendum, and we are going to leave on the 29th of March next year. The historic break is coming, and once we're a sovereign country once again, we will be able to unpick this mess. So there's more good news than bad news.
Onorevole Atkinson.
Well, in the UK, trade, economy and jobs are booming. You're welcome to your high taxation policies. We can and will compete with you. You want the socialist idea of a corporate tax harmonisation, digital taxes, green taxes, a financial transaction tax. Go ahead. It'll be another nail in your coffin. No competition means low tax and growth and prosperity. And as you say, a member state cannot have the same rights as a non-member state. Excellent. We don't want to be a vassal state and a protectionist trade racket that is moving to the abolition of the nation state. On Syria and Russia, your solidarity is fake. You know full well there is no conclusive proof of what happened in Salisbury and Juba. Just admit it. You actually hate and fear Russia. And on populism, I wonder how you think you can stop this. The people have votes. Do you want to curtail that right and freedom too? The voters are rejecting your policies across the EU, and this Parliament will have a very different make-up in 2019. In here, most of you are dinosaurs, and you know what happened to them.
Honourable Dodds.
Thank you, Mr. President. The deal reached in March Council on Brexit represents an important staging post in delivering the referendum result. The transition offers some clarity to businesses and paves the way for key talks on future trade. But it is far from perfect, not least for British fishermen. We have made progress, but we are not past the point of no return for a no-deal scenario. Those who talk up a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland cannot rationally claim that the answer is a new, vastly more problematic border between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. The DUP is clear. There will be no barriers within the United Kingdom's internal market. The EU must move away from the notion of special treatment to smart solutions. An ambitious free trade deal and customs partnerships can remove the vast majority of friction at every land and sea border between the UK and the EU.
Passiamo ora al caso di McGuiness.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's opportune that I come straight after my good friend and colleague, Madam Dodds. And indeed, I will reference Brexit, and I thank Donald Tusk for the very clear presentation here this morning about what is at stake. And that is, there is not a solution to the Irish border question, which we both, I hope, desire. There will be no withdrawal agreement and no transition. And that, Mr Farage, as you look me in the eye, is a very stark proposition. I would invite those of you who have not been to the border region to join me someday and listen to the people on the ground who are very anxious about this. No one in the European Union is talking up a hard border, and I certainly do not want to cross one when I travel to Donegal to visit my constituency, and I hope, Madam Dodds, you will share that aspiration with me. On the other hand, you have to understand that when you want to be a third country, there are consequences for it. But tragically, in the referendum, you forgot about Northern Ireland. Europe has not forgotten and will not forget. Thank you.
A nome del gruppo dell'Alleanza Democratici e dei Liberali, la parola all'onorevole Verhofstadt.
Yeah, I want first of all say to Donald Tusk, that to the President of the Council, that for the European Parliament, even with the withdrawal agreement now, things are not over. We need still to have the citizens' rights completed, because certainly after the Winters scandal in Britain, we want to be sure that the same is not happening to our European citizens, and that there is no bureaucratic nightmare there. So we will organise, President, with the Home Office on the 24th of April, next week, a special session with the Home Office of 5 of committees, all involved in this, to have this right. And if there are changes needed, we will also communicate to the negotiator, to David Davis and to Michel Barnier, what modifications are needed to avoid real problems for our EU citizens. And then my second point is on the coming Council. I think that in the same way as also Manfred Weber has said, I think that there are 3 points needed on your agenda. First of all, a breakthrough in the migration package. Sorry, but the European Parliament has a position. We are ready to negotiate this migration package. It's absolutely needed. The proposals of the Commission are very clear. And so my request to you is, when the Council going to have a position so that we can drastically reform the migration policy of the Union, but is absolutely needed.
Onorevole Henkel.
Let me take this opportunity to reflect on the speech of the French President of yesterday. He developed a vision of Europe, a vision of a centralized Europe, and it is exactly that vision which drove the United Kingdom out of the European Union. And I would suggest that the Council and the Commission changes its policy and makes an offer to Britain, an offer which enables Britain to get what they always wanted without Brexit. Let us stop this ridiculous situation where 2 trains are running on the same track against each other. Brexit is a lose-lose situation and a disaster for both Britain and the European Union. So I expect you, Mr. Juncker, and you, Mr. Tusk, to have the courage and take the initiative and make an offer to Britain which enables the Remainers to stay and enables the Brexiteers to save their face and stay in the Union by getting what they always wanted. Thank you.
Dei conservatori e dei riformisti europei, la parola all'onorevole Kamall.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. When the EU27 adopted the framework for a future relationship with the UK, I'm sure there was a sigh of relief on both sides of the negotiating table. For now we can stop talking about the past and now focus on the future. Now, on free trade, as you mentioned, Mr. Tusk, how important it is, one request I have, and I speak also for the rapporteurs from the other two or three big political groups, we are concerned that while there is a focus on EU-Japan, which is absolutely correct, please do not demote the importance of the EU-Singapore agreement. We should have signed this in the last Parliament. We delayed it on the EU side, and we really owe it to the Singaporeans to get on with that trade agreement. And let us also focus on a trade agreement between the EU, the world's largest trade bloc, and the UK, the world's 5th or 6th largest economy. And as Manfred himself has said, as we look at the global challenges, there will be occasions when it is in both the EU's and the UK's interest to work together. As the Salisbury attack and the Syrian intervention have shown, let us also resolve to continue cooperating in those important areas of security and intelligence. Because many of the challenges we face are not just European challenges, but global challenges. So my hope is that as we look to the future, we will see both an outward-looking European Union and a truly global Britain. Thank you.